So how do you know that a man really loves you? Is it by the grand gestures that he makes when he proposes? Or is it by the strong eye contact that he makes in romantic situations? Or is it the way that he treats you like a queen around his friends and his family? And how do you know that he's not faking it? Today we're going to be talking about 8 things the man will only do if he really loves you. My name is Matthew Coast, and welcome to Commitment Connection. Before we get started, if you're really serious about getting into a relationship where you feel loved and cherished and treated like a queen, make sure that you go to thegoddesscommunity.com and consider joining our community there, and it's really awesome, so check it out. So how do you know that a man really loves you? What are some of the things that he will do? So number 1 is he will love to make you laugh. And so the reason that this one is important is because he's coming from a space where he wants to please you. If you're watching this right now and you're in the chat, make sure that you say hello and tell us where it is that you're watching this from, because it's really awesome to see how many people from all over the world are watching this. So if a man is in a space where he really, truly loves you, he's going to want to please you. He's going to want to make you happy. He's going to want to make you feel good. He's going to want to do things that makes you feel like you enjoy being around him. And so one of the big ways that you can tell that he's doing this is he's going to be telling jokes. He's going to make little sarcastic comments. He might even do like little funny faces or something weird, right? And what he's trying to do is trying to get you to laugh, because that's like music to his ears. It's what tells him that he's doing a really good job, because he's making you laugh and you're enjoying it, and he's kind of like performing for you, right? He's trying to impress you by performing, and one of the ways that he knows that it's working is that you're laughing. And so that's number 1. So number 2 is that he's going to make time for you. And what is this? This is about him making you a priority in his life. And so if a man is really, really in love with you, he's going to want to make you a priority. He's going to shift things around in his own life in order to make you a priority in his life. And he's going to reschedule other things that are going on in order to hang out with you. He's going to go out of his way to come and spend time with you. He's going to drive across the city. He's going to do whatever he has to do. He's going to move mountains. He's going to do whatever he has to do. He's going to fly to the other end of the earth, right? Those are the cliches out there about doing this. So he's going to make time for you. You're going to become a priority in his life. And so all of these things, what you'll want to notice is how it happens over time. And one of the other things that you'll want to notice too is that being in love, which is what we're talking about here, we're not talking about the act of loving somebody, which is something a little bit different, right? It's a choice. It's a thing that you do for somebody. We're talking about this emotional feeling of being in love, right? Falling in love. And being in love is something that can grow. It can happen more. It's something that can be smothered. It's something that can happen less. It can be pulled away. And so what you want to kind of pay attention to here is kind of building this, and where is he? Like, where is he on this scale of like he's really into you or he's not really that into you? And so if his interest and desire, if his feelings of being in love kind of drop below a certain point, he's going to stop doing all these things, and then eventually he's going to start pulling away, and he's going to lose interest, and then he's going to disappear on you. And that's how you know. And if he goes the other direction, right, he's going to become more interested in you. He's going to start doing these things more and more and more. You're going to become more of a priority. You're going to become more of all the things that we're going to be talking about here. And so that's what you want, and that's what you want to pay attention to. And at the end, we'll talk a little bit more about how that feeling of in love actually happens, and how to build that and how to create that in your man. And so number one was he will love to make you laugh. Number two is he makes time for you. Number three is that he introduces you to his friends or his family, or both, depending on how he feels about his friends and his family. And even if it's not like a big deal, right? And so what do we mean by that, right? There's kind of this test where guys will take you around his family and he'll take you around his friends, and he's kind of like showing you off, and he's letting everybody know that he has this amazing person that he really cares about in his life and that he's proud to have. And that's why he shows you to his family and his friends, is because he's proud. He feels like he's done a great job, and he's like, oh, I've got this amazing woman in my life and I'm showing her off to my friends and family, and I want them to see how great of a job that I've done here so far. And so one of the aspects of that is that he's going to show you to his friends and his family. And so it's, is he doing that, right? And sometimes the thing that I said about the big deal is he might be like, oh, it's not a big deal, right? Like if you're like, oh, you want me to meet your friends and your family, right? And for a lot of women, it's like, whoa, like what's going on here, right? And a lot of times guys will play it down like, oh, it's not a big deal. Like it's not a big deal, even though it really is a big deal for him. He might try to say like it's not a big deal, or he might try to quell that because he wants to make it wants you to feel comfortable. He wants to make it a good experience, and he wants to do it. And so he'll do that, and he'll bring you around his friends and his family, and he might try to kind of chill everything out and make it feel kind of more relaxed and more comfortable doing that with you, so that you feel comfortable and you make a good impression and everybody likes each other. And sometimes that doesn't happen though, right? Like if men have families where they don't like their family, or they don't care about their family, or they were really hurt by their family as a child, or their parents weren't really there for them or something. Sometimes guys will kind of develop other kind of family, like their friends will become their family or something like that. And so it kind of depends on what's going on with the guy that you're seeing and how he feels in that regard as well. So that's just something to make a note of. So number 4 is he will make small but significant changes without being asked. And this is the concept that I've talked about before, where I talk about the differences between force versus power, right? Force is this thing where you're like nagging and you're like pushing and you're forcing and you're manipulating a guy to try to make him be the person that you want him to be. Whereas coming from a space of power is when a guy chooses this stuff. When you're coming from a place of power, men will choose to do this. They will decide that they want to step up and start making changes in themselves in order to impress you and to make you feel good and to show you that they really care about you by doing these little things. Because he'll hear things and he'll be like, oh, she said that and this is something that I need to do, and he'll think about it and he'll be like, yeah, but I really care about her and I want her to see how awesome I am and feel like I'm an awesome man. And so he'll do a lot of those things. And so like I said, a man will not want to change for a woman who tries to force him or who puts pressure on him to change his behavior. It's really gross. It feels gross for a guy if a woman is kind of coming from this place of force where she's trying to manipulate him, she's playing games with him, she's doing all these things to try to get him to do these things, she's nagging him or whatever, right? He's going to want to fight back against it. And so, but if he really loves you and you're coming from a space of power, then he'll want to do those things on his own. If you get what I'm saying right now in the chat, say, I get it. Say, I get it. If you get what I'm talking about here, say, I get it. So number 5 is he will tell you that you look beautiful at the worst possible time, right? And so even if you're not wearing makeup, even if you feel like you just woke up and, maybe you were just crying or you just got done working out and you look like a total mess and you're just a total whatever, he's going to reassure you and tell you that you're beautiful and maybe kiss you on the forehead and remind you that you're really amazing and beautiful to him and he thinks you're awesome. And that's what a guy who's really in love will do, because when a guy's really in love, all the little things that you're worried about, all your little vulnerabilities and all your little quirks, you fart in your sleep and you make these weird noises with your mouth when you're chewing, or whatever the weird things are. Whatever the weird things are that you do, you have little weird dimples somewhere, or you've got a freckle here or there, whatever, right? Those things will become these things that he starts loving about you. And so when he sees you in spaces where you feel like you're kind of gross, or you're not wearing any makeup, or whatever's going on, he will still kind of be all over you and think that you're beautiful and tell you these things and kiss you and tell you that you're awesome. And what you should be doing when he does that is just opening yourself up to receive, just accept it in, just allow it to come in and allow whatever he's saying, whatever he's doing to just come. Just allow it to come, right? Just allow yourself to receive it. So number 6 is he'll become very, very protective over you, right? So one of the things that men do, right, is we're providers and protectors. Maybe you've heard that before. And men will want to protect you, right? He'll want to, let's say that you go on, I don't know, maybe you go on a train, or you have a subway in your city and you guys get on the subway, and he will hold you in close and protect you and make sure, if the subway's bumpy, that you're not falling all over the place or whatever. Or if you're kind of out and you're doing something, let's say you're in a car and something happens, or you hit some weird road, he's going to want to protect you. If you're out at a bar or something, you're having a few drinks and something weird happens, he's going to want to continually always protect you and make sure that you're okay. If you have some people that are, you have a complaint about something that's going on and you're telling him about that, he'll want to fight those people, right? That's the sign that he's really into you and that he really loves you, is that he wants to protect you. And you might be like, whoa, wait, we don't need to move to violence here, right? And he's just like, I'm a man, I want to protect you, right? And so it's a big sign that he's in love with you. He has those feelings of being in love with you. And so number 7 is he'll always make time to listen, right? He'll try to get present. He'll try to listen to what it is that you're doing. And a lot of players, you'll notice, they hate doing this, right? They hate listening because they don't really care that much. In reality, is a lot of players, they don't care. And so you talking to them is like, oh God, I don't care about any of this. Right? And if he's really in love, he'll want to listen to you. He'll want to care about what it is that you're saying. He'll want to listen to all of the sad things that you have to say, your anger, your funny stories, the mundane things that you have going on in your life. If he's in love with you, he'll want to have conversations with you about this stuff. It'll feel less like a chore to him the more in love he is with you, and it'll feel more like a privilege to experience your life with you and listen to these things that are going on with you. And a lot of women, sometimes if they're feeling insecure or whatever, they'll be like, I don't, he doesn't care or whatever, right? Or I don't want to burden him with these things. And a guy that's really in love, it won't be a burden. It'll be something that he really wants to experience and he really wants you to talk about. So number 8 is you are in his future. And so if a guy's really in love with you, he's going to think about you in the future, and he's going to be like, I want to have this woman in my life in the future. He'll start planning things, and sometimes, and I'm just going to throw a caveat in here. I'm going to throw in a little instance where this might kind of not happen, and it kind of depends on if he's heard any men's dating advice or not, because a lot of times in the men's dating industry, what they'll tell people is not to do a lot of these things, right? Because it shows that you're interested. And if you show that a lot of guys out there, just like in the women's dating industry, where you'll get some of that advice where people will be like, oh, don't show interest in him or whatever, right? They tell the same thing over to the guys industry. And so he might try to not get overly excited about it, right? And try to plan things with you because he's like, oh, I don't want to show too much interest and scare this woman away or whatever, when he's really kind of falling in love with you and he really wants these things. And he's like, hey, I want her in my life. He'll try to plan trips with you. He'll try to plan things to do with you in the future, like go to concerts or do different kinds of things. He'll want to just have you in his life as much as he possibly can, in terms of trying not to like be too pushy about it and not freak you out because he's in love with you and he's not, and it's hard when you're in love with somebody because you look at them and sometimes you kind of like project your feelings onto that person, but you may know from your past experiences that sometimes what you feel is not what that person feels. So if you're in love with the person and you're like, being all over them and they're like, whoa, I'm not there yet, right? They're like, oh, and you can end up smothering them and pushing them away if you're kind of showing it too much. And it's really not even showing it too much, but it's smothering people that actually does that. And a lot of times people don't know that. And so sometimes guys will try to pull back on it, but you'll end up seeing glimpses of it, which is why we're talking about the things that a man will only do if he really loves you. And so those are the 8 things. Number 1 is he loves to make you laugh. 2 is he makes time for you. 3 is he will introduce you to his family, even though it's not a big deal. 4 is he will make small but significant changes without being asked. 5 is he will tell you that you look beautiful at the worst possible time. 6 is he'll become very protective over you. 7 is he will always make time to listen. And 8 is he will want you in his future. So again, if you're really serious about having the relationship that you've always wanted to have, make sure that you go over to thegoddesscommunity.com and consider joining our community there for free. It's really awesome. You get a bunch of free stuff for joining, and so go and check that out. And okay, so what else? All right, I said I'd talk a little bit about what makes a man fall in love. And so there's certain kind of levels of a man's feelings, right? So when you meet a guy, if he's really into you and his interest level is fairly high, he will start to develop feelings of attraction, and it'll build and build and build and eventually grow into this thing of feeling in love if you allow it to grow and you give it space to grow, but you don't give it so much space that it kind of putters out because it wasn't giving it enough attention. So the metaphor is the fire, right? So you build a fire and you want to, especially when it's first growing, you want to throw little twigs and stuff on it, but you don't want to throw so much on it that you end up smothering it, but you want to give it some air and allow it to grow and build, and eventually it gets bigger. And eventually what ends up happening is you can throw logs and stuff on it and it won't smother, and it'll just get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And at the same time, you can end up smothering it if you do too much, right? Anybody that knows, that's gone out and actually tried to build a fire before, knows that you can end up smothering a fire completely and destroying it. And so you don't want to do that. And what you do want to do is give it room to breathe, right? Like, love isn't something that you can really force. It's something that you can allow to happen, right? And the way that it happens is by connecting with it and giving to it, but also giving it space so that it can build and grow. And, having that connection there, building that deeper connection from a space for women, typically from the space of being feminine, from connecting to your own emotions and then connecting to him and allowing that kind of interest to grow and build and get deeper and to expand. It's something that I call the emotional range principle that I'm actually right now I'm recording the Forever Woman program that I'm creating for our community that I'm going to be giving away as part of our community for free. And so if you want to check that out, again, thegoddesscommunity.com. If you've got any questions or anything, I'm going to go through the chat here real quick, and I'm going to see what everybody's talking about. If you have any questions about what we just talked about, or if you have any questions about anything that's going on in your own particular situation, throw them into the comments section, throw them into the chat, and I will get to them right now. So we've got lots of good mornings. Good morning. I'm not sure. It depends on where you are in the world, I guess, whether it's morning or it's afternoon or evening or night. So hello, everyone. Sissy, Kelly, New York, Columbus, Ohio. Nice. London, Michigan, Canada, Taiwan, Malaysia. Awesome. Philippines, New Orleans. Upper Tar says hello. Bree May says, watching out of depression from being cheated, more like betrayed by my boyfriend. I don't even get that he loved me. It's very complicated. Well, I'm sorry to hear that, Bree. So, New Zealand, Australia. All right. It sounds like lots of people are getting it. Kathy says, thanks, Matthew, for the awesome advice. You're welcome. Welcome, Kathy. So Infinite Queen B says, yes, he puts his arm over to protect me. Yes, exactly. From you jerking forward when another car made us stop suddenly. Yes, exactly what I'm talking about here. Met Monk. How you doing, Met Monk? She said she doesn't get notifications of live streaming anymore. Did you check so make sure that if you're new to our channel, make sure that you subscribe, and there's a bell notification next to the subscribe button, and you have to click on that if you want to get notified. Sometimes, for some reason, YouTube doesn't notify everybody. Rachel says, so far he protects, he brings up you in his future. You won't be confused and frustrated about where you stand. That's right. Germany. Trisha says she's from Germany. Barbara says, we met on a dating site and have been together for 2 years. He has now started doing all these things and wants to be with me more and more. Awesome. Congratulations, Barbara. That is so cool. Yeah, Rachel says, go get Brie May, go get some options that will kill the depression. It's true. I mean, it's one of those things, and one of the things that I talk about sometimes is this idea of abundance. And so having more options and having more people, like one of the big kind of problems that a lot of times happens with women that are in our community is that they'll get so fixated and focused on one guy, and they will give everything to that guy, and they will end up, that guy will become their world, and their worlds will be kind of mixed together. And what ends up happening is that the woman's identity starts getting mixed together with the guy's identity. And then when the guy ends up breaking up, or he feels smothered and he pulls away or whatever, she feels like a piece of her was just removed. And so there's this big kind of vortex space, and she kind of gets sucked into it, and she's like, and it feels just horrible, right? It feels like somebody that's going through like withdrawal symptoms from using drugs, and all of a sudden there's this big space where they're not feeling that guy anymore, and it's like tearing them apart, and it hurts, and it's painful, and it's like, and it sucks. And if you create abundance, if you create a life that's your own, if you make sure that you have your own identity in addition to being connected to a man, then that's far less likely to happen, because you're creating space and you're allowing, like I said, that fire to grow instead of smothering it. And two, if something does end up happening, then it's a lot less painful for you, and it's and if you have kind of new guys in circulation and stuff, and you're contacting them and you're getting in touch with them and you're dating them, it actually can end up feeling really good, and all of a sudden you're like, whoa, like when I was so stuck on what that one person was doing, it was really painful. And now that I've opened myself up and there's all these other people and there's these guys who are trying to court me and they're pursuing me and they're chasing me, all of a sudden I don't feel so bad when this one person is misbehaving, because it's not a big deal, and you can just throw them back out into the ocean. You can take that fish. I don't know if any of you have ever fished before, but I've done some fishing before. You can just take that fish, just throw them back out and say, hey, fish, you can come back, if you're ready to behave. But if not, you can just hang out in the pond or the ocean or whatever you want to call them until you get it together. That's what you need to do, is get it together. So Mrs. Paranoid Android says, Matt, I have a question, because you once said not to have him move in with you unless he puts a ring on your finger. What did you mean with that, and why is marriage so important? Well, what I mean is, if you want marriage, which you may not want, a lot of people don't want marriage anymore, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with not wanting marriage. But if you want marriage, that's very important, because what's going to end up happening is the guy is going to get all of his needs fulfilled, right? And he's going to be like, oh, I don't need to do anything more, right? Because I've already got this girl, right? And she's with me, and all of my needs are being fulfilled. So I don't feel like I need to kind of show her this thing of love where I get her a ring and, do all this stuff, because I've already reached the end goal, right? A lot of times guys look at these things in terms of goals, and they're like, okay, this is what I'm looking for. And once he hits that goal, and you'll hear this from a lot of women, is when they move in with guys, what ends up happening is the guy starts getting lazy, right? And that's a number of different problems together. One of the problems is that he's already reached his goal. Another one of the problems is that whole thing about scarcity, the scarcity principle, which I talk about, which is that you're around him all the time, and so he starts taking you for granted because you're always there and you're living with him now, instead of being somebody that he appreciates more because of the contrast of you being there versus not being there, which is what makes somebody appreciate something that they have, is the experience of it not being there, right? If you have something all the time, right? So for instance, let's talk about health. If you've ever gotten an illness before, let's say you get sick, right? And you're sick and you're in bed and you can't do anything, you can't talk, you can't go anywhere, you can't experience your life. All of a sudden, what you do is you go, oh my God, I didn't realize how good things were, until all of a sudden you get healthy again and you go back out and you're like, oh my God, life is so good when you're not sick. It's so amazing. And you appreciate not being sick, right? Which is one of those things where it sucks. It kind of sucks that it takes removing something in order for somebody to appreciate it, but it's just human biology, right? This is something, human psychology. It's something that we appreciate when we experience the contrast of it being there versus it not being there. And it's always that way. And there's not a whole lot you can do about it other than make sure that you give space in order for something to appreciate it. So Dear Remy says, thank you for your advice. You're welcome. Yeah, Rachel says, yep, who cares if he cheated with 1,000,000 girls? You can go get 1,000,000 other men too. Boom. You have to know who you are. All right. So Rebecca says, hi, I'm Rebecca from Nottingham. I am in a relationship, but me and my fiance are keeping our relationship a secret because his friends think I am too childish. We haven't been talking much. Yeah, I mean, that's a problem. One of the things that I always say is that rule number 1 is that you never want to be a part of a relationship that has to be kept a secret. And just realize that if he actually feels that way about you, and he feels that way about you for a long period of time. I don't know how long you and your fiance. I mean, it's so you're getting married to a guy that wants to keep you a secret from his friends. I mean, that's just weird, Like, how is that going to play out when you're married? Are you okay with being a secret to his friends forever? Because that's the road that you're headed down if you end up getting married to this guy and you are going to be in your, a secret. That's just what it is. So Met Monk says, just met a nice man, been on a first date. Next date will have to be in 7 weeks. I am going to walk the Camino in Spain. Wonder if it can last on these conditions. 7 weeks, huh? That's a long time. That's a long time. So you went on a first date, and then the next date will be in 7 weeks. Oh, yeah. I mean, I wouldn't have too high of expectations for that. I mean, so many things can happen in 7 weeks when you're gone, because that's what we're talking about in terms of like the fire, right? Like you're completely removing yourself from it, and it can completely die or not. I mean, it just really kind of depends. 7 weeks is a long time, though, between a first and a second date. Elizabeth says, what if he does this and then pulls away off and on? Well, it depends on what you mean by pulling away. Sometimes women will say he pulls away, but what she really means is that we haven't talked in 2 days. And so it kind of depends on what you mean by pulled away, because, having space is a normal thing, right? And you want to give him space before he needs it so that you can allow, like what we're talking about, the fire to build. And it depends on what kind of a relationship you have. Are you guys talking all the time? Are you talking every day? What does it mean when he pulls away off and on? So Annalisa says, I love your advice. Thank you, watching from the Philippines. Thank you. I'm glad that you loved my advice. Milanka says, watching you from Western Australia. Cool. Annalisa says, hi, are you single? No, I'm not. Wiggy Girl says, my boyfriend has already moved in, so that's it. Well, I would just remember that a couple of different things, Wiggy Girl, is that first off, what you have to know is that a guy knows what kind of a relationship that he wants to have with you by the 6-month mark. So I don't know how long it's been since you guys have started dating, but by the 6-month mark, he knows whether he wants to get married to you, whether this is as far as it's going, or what's going on, right? And so you're in a situation where you moved in, and the question is, do you want a ring? Do you want to get married? Do you want that? And so the pressure that happens with a guy is that you end up kind of being this person where you're like, okay, what is it that I really want? And so if one of your needs that is that you want to get married and you want to have a marriage, then it's something that, one, you need to talk about with him. You need to have communication with him, and you need to have a conversation with him to make sure that it's something that he wants, especially if you're moving in together. This is where you're at the point where you need to be having real serious conversations about what the two of you want and where this is going. And if you're not having those conversations, then you're just leaving it up to chance. And those kind of conversations will tell you whether you should be moving in with him, and where this is going to go, and whether it's going to ultimately lead to the type of relationship that you want to have. And like I said, one of the most important things that you can possibly do, I've said this in other live streams, I talk about this in the Forever Woman program, is that your mindset has to shift here from going from this place of being like, this man is who I want, to this relationship is what I want. And so having an idea of what kind of relationship that you want is vastly more important than hanging on to a guy, because the guy might not want to have that relationship. He might not be willing to give you that relationship. And if you're willing to walk away and you're willing to kind of open things up for yourself and you're focused on the relationship as being something that's more important, then the guy that you want to have is more likely to provide that type of relationship because you're coming from a space of power instead of a space of force. Sorry, it just started like raining crazy outside my window here right now. So we get that here sometimes. So Met Monk says, or maybe I will find my hero pilgrim with the white boots. Maybe you will. So the hero pilgrim in Spain. I was actually thinking about going to Spain here in, what month is it right now? Is it July? We're in July, August. So I was thinking about going to Spain here in September. July, August, September. So September, going out to there's some cool beaches out there that I was thinking about checking out. So Milanka says, how old are you? I'm 37. Rachel says, it's like some adults that live with parents, they don't see the need to move out because mom and dad are providing. They get lazy and don't go look for a job, so he won't put a ring because she's getting sex. Yeah, I mean, it's the whole thing, right? So men, it's not just about sex, right? A lot of times women kind of focus on that piece because they know that it's something that guys really, really like. There's a saying out there that goes that men need sex in order to feel love and women need love in order to want sex. And I don't fully agree with that, but it's kind of an interesting thing, right? So guys kind of feel this pressure around inside themselves biologically in order to have sex. And it's one of those things where, so they a lot of times push for it, and it also gives a man more power in a relationship once they pass that physical intimacy point. And so men tend to focus a lot on that and think about it a lot. And a lot of times women kind of think about that, but there's also emotional needs that men have. There's a lot of emotional needs that men have where those are also something that if you're fulfilling all of those emotional needs, that's also something that will make a man lazy and feel like he doesn't need to do these things because he's getting all of those needs fulfilled as well. And so, yeah, it's something that you want to think about. So Mayette says, he always makes me laugh of his quirky jokes, but is it normal that he shared our funny experiences to his friends and laugh about it? Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things. I was actually just talking to this men's dating advice coach the other day, and we were talking about, he was telling me about this thing where he's like, yeah, women don't want you to share information about what's going on between you two with other people because it ends up getting around back to her, and it's like this weird thing where she'll go out and like talk to all of her friends and they'll gossip about what's going on with their guy, but they don't like men doing that with them. And is it normal? Yeah, it's normal. I mean, it's a normal thing, and I mean, it depends on how you feel about it, and if it's something where you don't like it and it feels really gross to you or feels kind of weird to you, it's something that maybe you should talk to him about and kind of communicate how you feel about it and just see how what he says and how he responds to that in reference to doing that. So Trisha says, what can I do after he blocked me online? So he blocked you online. When somebody blocks you online, it's a hint about what has been going on, right? Like you have been violating somebody's space to the point where they feel like they need to block you. That should be a signal to you that says that you have been acting in a way that is not appropriate for the situation, and you need to back off and chill and let go and lean back and take some time off and get yourself out of the situation, go create abundance, and do something else. If a guy's blocking you online, you need to chill. So Rachel says, oh, heck no. The whole point of being a woman is to be shown off. Part of it, secret, I would break up and deny I even dated him. Yeah. We just talked about that, actually. So Wiggy Girl says, we've been dating for 7 months and he keeps talking about marriage. I get on very well with his children, and his eldest daughter even said we should get married. He brings up marriage all the time. Well, that's a good sign. That's a really good sign. Rachel says, men put girls in categories. That's how God created it. Adam was told by man to name all of the creatures on earth, so men always put women and situations in categories. Okay. Liz says, good morning from California. It's going to be a hot day. All right. So Rachel says, it's up to woman to decide which category she wants to be placed in. That's right. It does. It is up to you. It is up to you to make sure that you're not settling for being put in a type of relationship that you don't want to be in. And that's what we talk about on this channel, and what I'm talking about in my Forever Woman program and in my community is making sure that you're empowering yourself so that you don't end up settling for something less, and you don't end up accidentally falling into something less than what you feel like you deserve and that you want, for that matter. Margaret says, from Queensland, don't know what he wants. Milanka says, I was 37 20 years ago. Wow. Well, I am still your older brother. I am here giving you advice as your older brother. That, I don't know. It's an inside joke, I guess, that we have here. That I'm the older brother of dating advice for all you ladies in the audience. Fairies and Unicorns says, hi from the Philippines. Thank you for all you do. Thank you very much for saying that. You're welcome. For Florencia says, hi, could you explain the idea of feminine and masculine energy in a relationship? Well, that is a massive topic. Feminine and masculine energy in a relationship. And I'm going to do an entire video on that here pretty soon. Let's see if there's something that I specifically... Is there anything specifically that you're looking for? Or are you just feeling like you're being too masculine in your relationship? The whole point is to create polarity, right? So if you want a man to be really attracted to you and you want to create some mystery and you want him to feel kind of like this irresistible urge to like be around you and be with you and to feel like you're kind of this magical being, then you want to get into your feminine energy. And there's a lot of things that I could say about that. I could talk about that literally all day long. I've got sheets on. I've created sheets on it. I've got diagrams, which is a very masculine thing to do. I've got diagrams. I've got boxes. I've got football kind of diagrams where you're like, all right, go here, and you throw it, and then you run that direction, right? And you come back around, and I don't know. I'm just making things up at this point. But what do you want to know about feminine and masculine energy in a relationship? Milanka says, Trish, if he blocked you online, just forget about him. Walk away. That is best. Shan says, good morning in Canada. What happens if the man is just very guarded? So what happens? What happens if he's just very guarded? I don't know. What are you trying to get at with that, right? He's very guarded, and what? You're trying to get him to open up. You want him to communicate with you. You want him to get emotional with you. Like what is your thing that you're trying to do here? Trisha says, thank you, Matt. You are right. I think he doesn't agree with my thoughts. Anyway, I'm always willing to walk away. Not sure what thoughts those are that he doesn't agree with, but it looks like we've run at the end of all the questions. So how do you know if he truly cares? That's kind of what I just talked about in this live stream. So you want to go back and watch the video from the beginning. So again, if you're really serious about getting into the relationship that you've always wanted, make sure that you go to thegoddesscommunity.com and consider joining our community there. You get a bunch of things for free. You can join our community with thousands of women online, and you can get lots of all kinds of stuff that will help you create the relationship that you've always wanted to have. So go check that out. And thank you everybody for being with me here today. It's always a pleasure to interact with you, and it's an honor for me to have you allow me to be a part of your journey for creating the life that you want, for creating the relationship that you want to have. So thank you so much for being here, and I will speak with you again soon.